Good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and dear participants. Welcome to Yashashwini and Idol 11th live webinar, organized by the Women Members Excellence Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Today, we celebrate the spirit of excellence and the remarkable contributions of women in our profession. Our theme, Yashashwini, symbolizes successful and accomplished women, and this platform is dedicated to empowering and inspiring each other. We are honored to have CA Nina Kapasi and CA Dalvide, who will be enlightening us on old tax regime versus new tax regime and issues in presumptive taxation and cybersecurity and data protection, respectively. Your expertise is greatly appreciated. Special thanks to CA Preeti Savla, Chairperson of WMEC, and CA Kemisha Soni, Vice Chairperson of WMC, for their leadership. Also, a big thank you for all the moderators and coordinators to bring this event to life. To all of you, I would like to introduce Nina Kapasi, ma'am. Uh, no words can be enough to introduce you, ma'am, but I will try my bit. Uh, Nina Kapasi is a practicing chartered accountant, practicing in taxation, audit, and management consultancy. She's a law graduate from Government Law College and independent director in various companies. She's a trustee of Aksara in an NGO engaged in women issues and pioneer in Helpline 103. Core group member of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, speaker at seminars and workshops organized by ICAI, BCAS, CITC, WRC management schools, IMC Ladies Wings, Forum of Free Enterprise, etc. Recipient of CA Women Independent Director Award organized by WYMEC ICAI, editor of Tax Deduction and Collection at Source, a law and procedure published by BCS Taxman 2024. She's a co-author of Handbook on Role on Women Directors published by ICAI, co-author of e-learning modules on TDS prepared by the BCS, co-author of Outlook Publications, Layman's Guide to Income Tax. She's also a contributor to articles in magazines and newspapers of professional interest, including BCS, Referencer, BCS booklets, Economic Times, Times of India, Vyapar, Outlook Money, Dignity, Style of Citralekha, etc. She has led various group discussions and addressed lecture meetings in taxation, finance, and investment. She's an editor of an newsletter published by Pradeep Kapasi and Company. She's got a huge work profile handling tax and audit assignments, business consultancy, drafting various deeds and documents, estate planning, business consultancy, etc. Ma'am, the list is a very short introduction to whatever your grand personality is. I cannot wait anymore to hear your deliberation. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for gracing us today.
Share. Just share. Thank you, Alpa, for your kind words. And thank you, Team Yashashwini, led by Priti Savla and Kemisha Soni, and all Enthu members, in inviting me for this uh, program. See, the topic is so relevant, and if this opportunity would not have been given to me, I would not have studied so much in detail. So, thanks for this opportunity. Now, coming to the topic proper, we will first take up new tax regime versus old tax regime as the time is approaching very quickly. 31st July is approaching. All of us have to file our return of income. And secondly, the issue is also relating to presumptive taxation, which we MSMEs as professionals, we face issues in day-to-day life. So let us take with new tax regime versus old tax regime. So I have given synopsis on page number 1, giving you the entire outline, the way I am going to progress into this talk. And this you can use it for the reference. For the time brevity's sake, I am not repeating same thing. Now you are aware that from AY 21-22, this new tax regime was introduced for the first time. What it was, the tax computation provisions were similar as compared to earlier old regime, only with few changes here and there, but lower uh, lower tax rates as compared to old tax regime. But at the same time, few of the exemptions and few of the deductions which were available in old tax regime were denied in new tax regime. However, when up to AY 23-24, the finance ministry must have realized that this new regime has not gained so much of popularity, and they want to get away with all these so many deductions and exemptions and make the income tax return filing simple with less of exemptions and deductions and less of rate of taxes, to compensate the same. So they have introduced now new tax regime in section 115 BAC 1A, which is absolutely new avatar of that original section 115 BAC, which were prevalent earlier. So one has to consider that now what is prevalent is BAC 1A and not that BAC earlier one. It is totally new avatar. What has happened now? So it has been made applicable to individual and HUF, which was there also in earlier new tax regime, but now it has also been made applicable to BOI, AOP, other than cooperative society and artificial juridical person as per section 231(7). Now this benefit under new tax regime is applicable to resident as well as non-resident. There is no compulsion that person has to be resident only as for claiming this. Now, what are the tax rates? Tax rates are benefit. If you see, tax rates as per earlier new tax regime and now tax regime, it has been made simpler. The slabs have been made simpler. The rates have been also rationalized to the extent that on 15 lakhs rupees under new tax regime earlier used to have a tax of 1,87,500. Now it is 1,50,000 rupees. Tax rates earlier, the slab rates were 2,50,000, and accordingly 5% were increasing at every slab of 2,50,000 increase. Now they started with a threshold limit of 3 lakhs rupees only. So the threshold is also increased by 50,000. Now, when this threshold is increased to 3 lakhs rupees, there is no separate limit which have been provided to senior citizen as well as super senior citizen, which is available under old tax regime. Like under old tax regime, for senior citizen, the tax limit, the threshold limit was 3 lakhs rupees. And for super senior citizen, that means those who are above 80 was 5 lakhs rupees, which is still continuing in old tax regime. However, in this new tax regime, there is only one limit of 3 lakhs rupees for all kinds of assessing, whether normal or whether senior citizen or super senior. Now, in this regime, the tax slabs have been changed over this every 3 lakhs rupees and 5 percentage has been increased. There is no slab rate of 25 percentage and above 15 lakhs, the limit is 30 percentage. So basically, when on 15 lakhs rupees, you would have paid 1,87,500. Now you are paying 1,50,000. So there is a direct savings of 37,500. This is when you calculate only purely in arithmetical terms without considering deductions and exemptions, which you will give away. Now, if you consider old tax regime, the tax would have been somewhere around 1,12,000 plus 30 percentage, which is 1,50,000. So it may be some around 2,22,000. So huge savings as compared to old tax regime. And in case of a new tax regime, there's Avatar 2, which has been introduced with effect from AY 24-25. Again, AMT, which is leviable, is also not leviable when you go for new tax regime. Surcharge, a high health and education cess will be applicable as it is, 4% of tax. When you consider this income, there are some income which are getting taxed at a specific rate. Say, for example, LTCG on STT paid, it is taxed at 10% over a amount of 1 lakh rupees. STCG, STT is 15%. Now those rates will continue as it is, and there is no change in new tax regime, new avatar or old avatar, or even in old tax regime. So to that extent, it is tax neutral. Here also this CBDT has this given a good lollipop for high taxpayers also. So surcharge has been reduced at the highest level of 5 crore or above at 39 percentage, 25 percentage as compared to earlier 37 percentage. So up to you are aware that up to 50 lakhs to 1 CR, from 50 to 1 CR, it is a 10 percentage. 1 CR to 2 CR, it is 15 percentage, which is same under new tax regime and old tax regime. 2 CR to 5 CR, it is 25%. That there also it is same. But above 5 CR, the rate is reduced from 37 percentage to 25 percentage, which makes effective tax rate at 39 percentage in case of a new tax regime. Whereas if we are going for old tax regime, it will be 42.74 percentage. So high, huge savings. Now, surcharge on tax on capital gains under section 111A, 112 or 12A, and dividend income, which was limited to 15 percentage, which is still is the same under even new tax regime. Now, there is a change even rebate. Under old new regime, that is the new tax regime, Avatar 1, there was there no separate rebate. Section 87A, which is applicable only to resident individual. Please bear in mind that though the 115 BAC is applicable to individual HUF, AOP, BOI, and artificial juridical person, as far as rebate is concerned, it is applicable only to resident individual and not to any other assessee. So now in the limit under old tax regime, you are aware that it is rebate is given up to rupees 5 lakhs rupees or 12,500 rupees, whichever is lower. 100% of tax when the income is does not exceed 5 lakhs rupees. It is 100% of tax or 12,500, whichever is lower. Whereas in case of new tax regime, now the rebate is increased for income up to 7 lakhs rupees, where the rebate is given to 100% of tax or 25,000, whichever is lower. Now, if we compute, normally on regular income, this 7 lakhs, the tax will work out to be 25,000. Huh? 25,000. Whereas now, 25,000, if you consider normal tax. However, if the income would have been consisted of STT on which STT is paid, it would have been taxable at 15 percentage. In such case, the tax on such uh, income would have been more than 25,000. So the uh, the relief is restricted only to 25,000 rupees and not more. You are aware of marginal relief, which is normally provided on, on the total tax payable, where it exceeds a particular amount. Now, first time marginal is relief is provided for rebate under section 87A. First time it has been provided. So now, for example, what happens, till 7 lakhs rupees, your tax works out to be 25,000 rupees in generally, and you don't pay any taxes thereon. But if your income is 7 lakh 10,000 rupees, you pay tax of 25,000, 26,000. Okay. So what happens just by getting 10,000 additional, you are worse off by 26,100. So to compensate such scenario, the rebate is given. In such case, the rebate of 25,000 will be given. And what would have been taxable, what would have been chargeable to is only 1,000 rupees. So this is the first time the government is introduced marginal relief in case of a rebate. The government gives all the lollipops to see that the assessees are shifting to new tax regime and they can get away with various exemptions, reductions, etc., which are availing for the reduction of total income. Now, what are the deductions which have been denied if you opt for non-tax regime? So the first is leave travel allowance available for salaried individual. House rent allowance. This is a very typical example which all the salaried employees will be taking, and it will be a considerable proportion in their total salaried component. There is a 1032 minor child income allowance which is given to the guardian in whose hands the income is getting clubbed, which is rupees 1500 per child. That is also not available. 1014 other special allowance for the performance of the duties. Normal was, that 700 rupees conveyance allowance per month, which we used to claim for salary income, that will be denied. Allowance is paid to MPs, MLAs, and whatever name called, specific allowance, constituency allowance. Those allowances are also not be eligible to be claimed exemption under Section 1017. Exemptions to newly established SEZ under Section 10AA, one will not be able to claim it. Entertainment allowance, professional tax, you will not be able to claim. Entertainment allowance is a paltry sum, not even worth discussing. Professional tax, in case of a Maharashtra, it is 2,500 rupees that you will not be able to claim. But sometimes one doesn't understand the pickiness of government, that 2,500 rupees, why it was not given. As it is, entertainment allowance is limited only to government employees. Now, what is more important is, this borrowed capital interest. So when you take a loan on for a self-occupied house property or a vacant property which you are not able to let out, the interest thereon is eligible to be claimed under Section 24B, restricted to rupees 2 lakhs rupees. That also you will not be able to claim under new tax regime. Similarly, additional depreciation in case of a business associate, not regular depreciation. Please bear it into mind that regular depreciation as per 32.1 and 32.1.2 is you can claim, but additional depreciation which were eligible on machinery installed during the year subject to fulfillment of specific conditions, you will not be able to claim. 32 AD, investment in new plant and machinery in notified and backward areas, you will not be able to claim. 33 AB, tea, coffee, rubber development account, investment, a specific thing, not be able to claim. 33 ABA, site restoration fund. 35 to double A1, deduction for expenditure on scientific research. 35 AD, deduction in respect of expenditure on specified business. 35 CCC, expenditure on agricultural income project. Now, these are the denials or exemptions which will not be granted to you. Subject to these specific things, all other exemptions under 10 and under this business incomes in computation provisions also, you will continue to get it. Okay. So now if you say, okay, 1010 D, that LIC maturity, you will get it. 10.1 agricultural income exemption, you will get it. 10, interest from or income from partner, share of profit from partnership from exemption, you will get it. Gratuity subject to the fulfillment of conditions, you will get it under 1010. Leave encashment subject to conditions and subject to the limit why you will get it. So please note that these are the denials of exemptions. Those are only you will not get it. The other exemptions, remaining exemptions and deductions, you will continue to get it. Now, what is more thing, So this chapter 6 है deduction, वो तो पूरा का पूरा निकाल दिया है. They have taken out entire chapter 6 deductions, which we, like old practitioners, we were claiming on year to year basis. And when the client, it was not only for the purpose of tax savings, but it used to serve a good mean to build your retirement corpus, to build your, to safeguard your family in time of unfortunate event, or to, in case of a illness, prolonged illness, this used to give a good protection. And a country where social security scheme is not available, this had built a good safeguard for the assessees, especially small assessees. So now those all those deductions are denied when you go for a new tax regime. Now, which are the main ones, that we will discuss. But otherwise, all under Chapter 6A, under 80 May, whatever there are there, except those four which we will discuss, all are denied. ATC, LIC, PPA, school fees, PF, LELSS, housing loan repayment up to rupees 1,50,000 denied. ATD Mediclaim, which is limit is 25,000 or 50,000 for senior citizen. ATE, interest on education loan. ATG, donation. ATQ, royalty on income of authors on book. ATTTA, which all of us are claiming 10,000 rupees for regular assessee and 50,000 in case of a senior citizen. ATU, deduction in respect of handicap dependents. So now all those deductions you will not be granted. So 80 may, whatever deductions are there, they are not there. You will not be able to claim it. What happens, when an assessee, a fresh assessee who has just started earning, if he shifts from old tax regime to new tax regime, and he doesn't give a damn about now investment in this LIC, PPF or Mediclaim, because now it doesn't have the tax incentive. So in that sense, because you are not giving adequate attention to this savings which they have to build over a period of years, that safeguard, that net will be lost. This one has to be, rather, one has to insist to our clients that, whether you are going under new tax regime or not, this particular compulsory savings one has to continue. Now, few chapter 6A, as I've told you, that only 4 deductions are eligible. ATCCD2, deduction in respect of only employer's contribution to NPS. So under old regime, you are getting employees' contribution also to NPS. Now that will not be available. This is subject to the limit of 10% of salary and HR, uh, salary and dearness allowance in case of a government, non-government employees, and 14% in case of a government employees. ATCCH, very specific deduction. It is in respect of contribution to Agniveer Corpus Fund. ATJJAA, deduction in respect of employment of new employees. This is granted to the business enterprise, subject to the fulfillment of conditions. Now, the government really, the employment on unemployment is a glaring problem, and the government would surely like to continue this kind of incentive to generate employment. ATLLA1, LA1A, this is a specific deduction in respect of certain incomes of International Financial Service Center on fulfillment of prescribed conditions. Again, few of the other deductions which were not there in new tax regime, Avatar 1, they again reinstated into this Avatar 2. Standard deduction of 50,000 is available now, even if you go under new tax regime. Family pension scheme, a deduction of rupees 15,000 or 1/3 of the family pension, whichever is lower, is available. Interest on home loan for let out property will be available. So now, if you are taking loan for self-occupied house property for your own residence, you will not be eligible if you go under no new tax regime. But if you are taken for a property which you are going to let it out, which you have let it out, then you will get the deduction. There is no limit for the deduction. Now, depreciation in case of block of assets as per section 32(1)(1) and 32(2) is available. However, additional depreciation, when the first time depreciation, when the machinery is installed, but the additional depreciation is given, that depreciation will not, additional depreciation will not be eligible to claim under new tax regime. Now, even set off of loss is also denied, which is pertaining to additional depreciation. If you have unabsorbed depreciation on account of additional depreciation, that loss will be denied. House property loss, whether it is pertaining to let out property or whether it pertains to any other property, you cannot adjust any against any other head of income. Okay. Now, this house property loss or unabsorbed additional depreciation shall be deemed to have been given to full effect and no further deduction for such loss or depreciation will be eligible. Unabsorbed additional depreciation in case of an assessee who was in old tax regime till AY 1323-24, and now he is in new tax regime for AY 24-25. So if there is an unabsorbed additional depreciation, then to that extent, your WDV of such block of assets as on 1/4/2003 will be adjusted. Let's take one example that there is a WDV of 10 lakhs rupees. Now there is a unabsorbed additional depreciation of 1 lakh rupees and additional unabsorbed depreciation of 3 lakhs rupees. So that 1 lakhs rupees of unabsorbed additional depreciation will be added back to WDV as of 1/4/2023. Unabsorbed depreciation, regular depreciation will continue as it is subject to the and will set off as per the provisions. Now, main issue is, can you shift between old tax regime and new tax regime? Is it possible? So now what is the main difference, in this new avatar 115 BAC 1A? This new tax regime has become a default regime. And if you want to opt, you have to do some process. Whereas as compared to then this earlier avatar 115 BAC, old tax regime was default, and if you want to go to new tax regime, you have to file for. So here, when non-business taxpayers, it is supposed to be that you are into new tax regime if you are income, if you are an individual HUF, AOP, BOI, or artificial juridical person. But if you want to go for a old tax regime, then you can, in case of a non-business taxpayer, they can switch between old tax regime and new tax regime every year at the time of filing tax returns. But ROI to be filed with now, if he wants to go for a new tax regime, then the act requires that the law requires that RO return of income should be filed within due date under section 139(1). So it is non-tax audit assessee, then in that case it is to be filed by 31st July return, and otherwise you have to file before 30th September. Now, it may so happen that you are a non-business taxpayer. You have filed under OTR by filing your return before due date, and by selecting your tax regime and income tax regime as old, and you have filed your return. Now, you can still revise your return as per section 139(5), and you may shift to new tax regime for the same assessment year. In case of a non-business taxpayers, everything is possible. But when you're talking of taxpayers, business income, the taxpayer having business income, the situation is a bit different. So when you talk of business income, what does it mean? Does it mean that you have to have your proprietary income? Does it mean that you have to have your interest and remuneration from partnership firm? Not necessarily. If you check, the act just mentions that having business income. Now, it doesn't mention having chargeable business income as mentioned in section 207 or so. So now, even when you are having just a share of profit from a firm which is exempt under section 10(2), then also it will be considered as a business income. This particular point one has to consider correctly. Now, in that case, you have to file Form 10 IEA before the due date of filing return of income. Earlier, when you wanted to go for a new tax regime, when you want to select, it was Form 10 IE. Now it is 10 IEA. Okay. Now, form is only required to be filed before due date. It is not necessary that a return should be filed by due date. Return you can file it, upload also later on. But the form you should clearly disclose your option of going for a old tax regime before the due date. Once you select that old tax regime, you can just shift it to once. So you can go to new tax regime only once, and once you change it, then you cannot go back to old tax regime unless you don't have business income. So I've given you two examples. First is, in AY 24-25, you have selected OTR because otherwise, here the default system is new tax regime. That one has to remember. So if you want to go for OTR, you have to you have to opt for new tax regime. So you have selected 20, in OTR 24-25 old tax regime. Check the rightmost column. In 25-26, again, you have gone back to non-tax regime. So now you cannot go back to old tax regime unless you don't have business income. So 27-28 also you have to continue with non-tax regime. However, in 24-25, you as a default, you are into non-tax regime. So you select once in 25-26 old tax regime. Then again in 26-27, once you can shift to new tax regime. But then 27-28 onwards, you cannot change unless there is no business income. This is a bit confusing. Now, what happens that if you don't have business income in AY's 27-28, but and then you go for then you go for an old tax regime. Then what happens, when in case of AY 28-29 or subsequently when you are having business income, can you shift? So there, we really require, this is going to create unnecessary controversy, and it is required that CBDT may come out with some clarification or notification. So this is relevant to AY 24-25. This is Rule 21 AGA, which says that for opting out from the new tax regime, you must furnish Form 10 IEA by a person having income under PGBP, and that is a before due date of filing return of income, and that has to be filed electronically. And either you have to do it under digital signature or by generating EBC, which all of us are aware of. And persons, if you are not having PGBP, then you have to opt out from the new tax regime by exercising the option in the return. You have to mention that you are opting for a old tax regime, and you have to file the return before due date. Re-entering into new tax regime, again, you have to file Form 10 IEA if you have income from business or profession. And again, you have to furnish, in case of a non-business income, you have to furnish return of income. If you have, and you have to file your before the due date. So now how you have to you can file Form 10 IEA. That is a typical thing, you have to visit income tax portal with your login credentials. Select e-file. I've just given you path so it is easier for you to understand. Select relevant assessment here. Select income tax return form. Select tax regime, or where you have to select old tax regime and upload and generate EBC, electronic acknowledgement by signing by EBC or digital signature. So there is a acknowledgement number which will be generated. That acknowledgement number you have to mention while filing your ITR, and it should be well preserved because it should be used for tracking the status and referred in future communication. So when this is better, whether that perpetual question is which is better, whether to go for old tax regime or whether to go for new tax regime. Now, if you consider clearly arithmetically, without considering other deductions and exemptions which you will not be granted, the point is that below 7 lakhs rupees, this naturally this is better, new tax regime. And above 5 lakhs CR also, what is better is, new tax regime, because surcharge is very less. The effective tax rate is reduced by 3%. In between, I have given you deduction amount. If that deduction amount is, if your this under old regime, your deduction amount is more than that, then only old tax regime is preferable. Otherwise, you have to select new tax regime only. This is purely on arithmetical calculation. However, if you are considering that you are a business assistant, if you are considering that, I need to buy a house within a 2-3 years, and you really to buy a house in a city like Mumbai, you need to go for a housing loan. And in that case, that considering that heavy interest, if you opt for new tax regime and if you're having your own business, in that case, that deduction of interest, which can be sizable, will be denied. So just think about it. Or there may be standard LIC payment which you are paying every year and which you would like to continue to safeguard your family. And Mediclaim also one cannot let go, in case of this scenario where the health cost is increasing year by year. So all those scenario one has to consider with only uh, when you select for this old tax regime or new tax regime. So I have given you deduction amount. So basically 3,75,000. If it is deduction amount, then old tax regime and new tax regime is okay. I've given you this deduction amount in this column 2. If it is exceeding, then old tax regime is okay, preferable. Otherwise, for all practical purpose, new tax regime is proper. But you consider and you also see your 5 years down the line what you are going to select, especially when you are having business income. Otherwise, for non-business income, yes, you can select on year-to-year basis, and you can minimize your tax implications. But for business income, just think 5 years down the line, and then only you select. The government is also launched this tax calculator by this, this is I have given the link which is there on incometaxindia.gov.in, and they've given the calculator which you can utilize for the purpose of calculation. There are various YouTube videos, which are available for computation, and you all are proficient in calculating the tax limit. So I'm not giving you any live example because I understand that there are presumptive income, presumptive taxation, which will take more of our time. Now, in case of a salaried individuals, who would like to opt for old tax regime, now he will be required to submit his investment declarations at the beginning of the financial year only to their employers. So it is not there. Otherwise, as new tax regime has become a default tax regime, so unless and until you submit this investment declarations, the tax will be calculated at new tax regime only. But you submit, if you feel you want to opt for new tax regime, you submit your declarations, and then TDS will be deducted at OTR. However, you can still, that doesn't mean that is the end of the road. You can still file his return as under new tax regime and validly claim TDS. Let's come to this new presumptive taxation. So there are various presumptive taxation for the purpose of simplification of tax laws, or so they say that it is simplification. But once you go inside, there may not be so much of tax simplifications. We will deal with 44 AD, which is applicable to all of us, and 44 ADA. Other presumptive taxation schemes I have just narrated for the purpose of information. Now, 44 AD is a small business assesses, and who are the eligible? Here, when you want to get the benefit of presumptive taxation, you have to be resident. So either it is available to individuals under 44 AD is meant for business income. So individuals, HUFs, and partnership firms. But LLP, though otherwise considered as a partnership firm, is not eligible under for Section 44 AD. And such entities should be engaged in eligible business with a eligible turnover. Now, what is the turnover or gross receipts? That is up to 2 CR, which was up to till AY 24-25. Now, with effect from AY 24-25, if cash receipts during the previous year is less than or equal to 5% of total turnover or gross receipts, now you can go for presumptive for till turnover of 3 crores also. So there are two limits. One is a turnover limit. That means either it has to be less up to 2 CR, or if your cash receipts is up to 5% of total turnover or gross receipts, then it can be increased to 3 CR. And he chooses to declare his income under presumptive scheme. Now, what is turnover or gross is where the way we understand, So turnover, the basic point is whether does it include GST? So it all depends on your method of accounting employed. If you are into inclusive system of accounting where GST is always considered as a part of turnover or gross receipts, it will be part of turnover. However, if we are maintaining the exclusive method of accounting whereby GST is stated separately, whereby GST collected and paid is shown in that particular account, then turnover will not, GST will not be part of turnover. What is eligible business? So eligible businesses are all businesses other than business of flying, hiring or leasing of goods and carriages, which are separately covered under section 44 AE. Any profession, because for that there is a specific section under section 44 ADA, commission or brokerage and agency business. Because in commission business, you cannot say that nahi baba 8% income hoga, nahi baba 6% income hoga. That can be more there also. So commission and brokerage business is not a part of eligible business. Now, what is the estimated income? So if your turnover or gross receipts, if you have received by account pay check, account pay bank draft, this digital, any electronic mode such as RTGS, NEFT, credit card, debit card, uh, and that amount has been received before the due date of filing return of income, then in that case, it is a 6%. For balance amount, it will be 8%. If if you have received by check or draft, but it is not account paying, then it will be considered as a cash receipts and not as a digital payment. So basically, digital payment and cash payments. So if it is the digital payment, it is 6%, and cash payments, it is a 8%. Now, when you estimate this income, there are all deductions under section 30 to 38, including depreciation, shall be deemed to be granted to have been allowed. So if say, for example, if you have machinery worth 5 crore rupees, so on that even 50 lakhs rupees depreciation or 75 lakhs depreciation shall be deemed to have been allowed. Okay. So one has to select whether to go for presumptive or not. Because depreciation, WDV will also be considered accordingly. No deduction of interest and salary to partners. If all professionals, if you recall, up to AY 16-7, 2016-17, this was allowed. And so, for example, say you have a turnover of 2 CR. You are estimating income at 8%, that is 16 lakhs rupees. From 16 lakhs rupees presumed income, you could have paid interest and remuneration to partners, and on balance only the tax was required to be filed. Now, from AY 2017-18, this deduction is not allowed. And on entire 16 lakhs rupees, you have to pay the taxes. So, deductions, however, deductions under Chapter 6A are eligible. Deduction under 80C and 80U are allowed, provided again, you whether you are going under new tax regime or whether you are going under old tax regime. So, you are only if you are going under OTR, this will be eligible. Now, what will happen? Books of account need not be maintained. When you are going under presumptive taxation scheme, you need not maintain your books of account. In that case, if you are offering 6% or 8% as it may be applicable, there is no audit. Basic records you will surely maintain. Cash memos, bills, cash book, etc. to ascertain the turnover and to ascertain the receipts by cash or any other mode. Opening balance required for future years if the assessor returns to the normal computation provision. No? Because you have to, you come out of the presumptive. If you feel, no, that 6% or percentage is much more, my business does not justify this kind of presumption, you may come out of it. Okay. So, but once you go for a presumptive taxation and if you declare lower income, then you are not eligible to claim benefit of section 44 AD for next 5 years. Okay. And if your total income is exceeding the basic limit, that means individual, in case of individual or HUF, it is 2,50,000 or 3 lakhs rupees, whatever the case may be, then it has to be audited by under Section 44AB. Now, how about advanced tax? Because finally the tax liability is on presumptive basis. So you don't have to pay your advance tax in 4 installments, but if the entire advance tax is paid by 15th March, then there will not be any tax liability under interest liability under Section 234B or C. But if it is not paid, then surely the interest under Section 234B and C will be leviable. Similarly, there is a presumptive taxation for professionals like us. So this scheme has been introduced for small professionals from AY 2017-18. The applicability is for a specified professionals. It is not for each and every professional. Professional is a very wide term. However, 44 ADA is applicable only to those professionals which are covered under Section 44 AA1. Now, there are two conditions that gross receipt should not be during the year what you have received is do not exceed 50 lakhs rupees. Now, again, the same limit has been raised to 75 lakhs provided not more than 5% of gross receipts during previous year are in cash. What are the specified professionals as per Section 44A1, that is legal, lawyers, etc., medical doctors, engineers, architecture, chartered accountant, technical consultant. Technical consultant is a bit wide term, and there may be many which may be covered under technical consultant. Interior decorator and other notified persons, professionals, where authorized representative is involved, included, film artist, company secretary, and information technology. These are the specified professionals which will be covered by 44 ADA. Now, when you are falling under Section 44 AA professionals and your gross receipts is less than 50 lakhs rupees or 75 lakhs rupees, you do not have any option but to go for presumptive and show income at 50% of gross receipts as professional income. Now, in case of a 44 AD and 44 ADA, do you consider that 8% or 6% in case of a 44 AD and 50% in case of this is a sacrosanct and you cannot show higher income, or you should not show higher income, or you need not show higher income? I think my viewpoint is a bit different. As you know, the section, if you see of 44 AD and 44 ADA, both it says that 50% of gross receipts, or as the case may be, higher income is claimed to have been earned by the assessor. So, assuming that you have your as a professional, you have your gross receipts, as say for example 50 lakhs rupees, and your outgo is just 15 lakhs rupees for a professional expenses, and other 35 lakhs rupees either out of that you pay your taxes, you spent for your personal expenses, and you have invested uh, in various instruments, properties, etc. So can you say that your income is only 50% and can you get away with it? My viewpoint is different, and I feel that you have to show higher income if your even basic uh, basic this your documents show that your income is higher. Yesterday only I received one forward which I could not verify the accuracy of it, but there are some 56 transactions which are going to be reported by CBDT. And if you see your entire Kundali is covered in that CBDT reporting in AIS and 26 AS, everything, whether your gross receipts, your whatever you are receiving, whatever you are investing in stock market, your off market transactions, your mutual fund redemption receipts, your capital gain transactions, your interest from various instruments, including FD, perpetual bonds, regular bonds, perpetual bonds, your savings bank account, your share transactions dividend income, your AIF, alternative investment funds income, your debenture income, nothing which has been left out. Now, where your GST records are also synchronized with your income tax records. Yeah. So, in that scenario, can you say that, Baba, I have not maintained my books of account and I am just showing my 50% as presumed? In my opinion, I think this is going to be a bit difficult scenario. Now, once you estimate this thing, then all deductions under section 30 to 38, including depreciation deemed to have been allowed, you have to consider WDB when you want to go back to when you want to come out of presumptive taxation or when you go for a tax audit limit. So now here also the scheme is silent about the salary and interest of partners. So if it is not specifically allowed under section 44 AD, but it is specifically allowed under section 44 AE, if you see for this, in case of for this leasing of vehicles, etc. So whether it will be allowed, that's a question which one has to consider. And if it is not allowed in the hands of a professional firm, can it be taxed once again under section in partner sense? That is also one has to consider. Deduction under Chapter 6A will be allowable provided you are into old tax regime. If you are not, then again you have to consider. Again, books of accounts need not be maintained. No books of account, no audit, basic records to be maintained. So small things, your cash memos, your cash book, your documents, your these vouchers, etc. No need. But opening balance required for future years if assessor returns to the normal competition provision, as we have talked about this WDB. You may also declare your lower income. If in case of a, say, for example, in case of a professional, if you are acquiring a new office, which will also entail you heavy depreciation. And with so many computers and other machineries, you may really not earn 50%. This is just in case such case, if your income is more than basic exemption limit, then you have to maintain your books of accounts and you have to get it audited also. So for getting the accounts audited, there are two conditions which you need to satisfy. That you are showing your income which is less than presumption limit, that is 50%, and your total income, including other income, is more than basic exemption. Then only tax audit is required to be done. Otherwise, it is not necessary. Here also same case, there is no need to pay advance tax in 4 installments. And if you are paying the total advance tax as applicable to your presumptive income by the 15th of March, then there is no tax interest liability under section 234B and C. Now, few of the issues which I'm just discussing. Now, this law is evolving. So do not take this as a sacrosanct, but these are just the issues which can arise. That the decision may be in favor of the assessee, but finally this issue has arisen at assessing officer level or at CIT appeal level that says that you have to give adequate attention to all this issue. So if an assessee declares his business or professional income in terms of section 44 AD and 44 AD, can there be a separate disallowance under section 40A3? So if you are making cash payments in excess of 10,000 rupees, even though you are offering your income under presumptive taxation, can it be again added back? So no, because section 28 to 43C would not apply if the assessee opt for, because it covers 28 43 is in between that. So there should not be a separate. Otherwise, what is the meaning of presumption? Because to check your cash, also you have to maintain your books of accounts. Again, the next is X is engaged in the supply of labor for civil construction, but he has not recorded certain receipts in these books. Though they are reflected in 26 A's. AO wants to add the entire difference. Easy, right? Again, the judgment is, only 8% will be uh, credited as income. This is by this Jodhpur tribunal. But my point of giving this case law is, that, now 26 A's or AIs is giving you full kundali. And surely, when your kundali shows that your income is much more than 8% or 50% and you are showing very less, then the issue may arise. So again here, after accepting business income declared by assessee at 8%, can the AO make a separate addition under section 69C? So here, based on this facts, the decision was given in favor of the assessee, Nandlal Popli. But there are other decisions on 68, 69 also, which I will come to know. Again, this is a Mr. X declares income on presumptive basis. Cash sales is 8 lakhs rupees, 8% of 1 crore cash on this presumptive income. And payment is received through banking channel is 3 lakhs rupees. So 6% is 50 lakhs rupees. However, it is found that cash of rupees 3 lakhs rupees received in violation of is liable to penalty under section 271 DA. So 269 ST and 269 SS, it is will be surely applicable. And if it is found, then there will be surely a penalty under section 271 DA. What the provision gives you is a section 28 to 43C and not beyond that. And 269 SS and ST is above. 43B, whether it will be available. So when in case of this, you have not paid this government taxes, dues, etc., can be allowable. It can be added back. So in case of a 43B, yes, it starts with a non-obstant clause. Anything. So because it is a non-obstant clause, it overrules section 28 to 43C, and there can be disallowance of statutory and other liabilities. So whether TDS provisions are applicable where income is declared on presumptive basis by individuals and NGOs. So now the limit for TDS is applicable to individual and HUF. Earlier, it was related to tax audit done in earlier financial year. Now, the limit is directly connected to turnover or gross receipts. So now in case of a business associate is 1 crore and in case of professional associate is 50 lakhs rupees. Once it is exceeds, even though you are under presumptive taxation, the TDS provisions are to be complied with. Can an assessee set off brought forward business loss or unabsorbed depreciation? Yes, the provisions of set off of losses will continue as it is. There will not be any change because Chapter 6 is a separate only. However, unabsorbed depreciation is a part of current depreciation, and current depreciation is deemed to be granted under presumptive taxation, so that it will not be granted separately. So now this is under section 68 to 69 and 69C, whether the additions can be made. I would request each and every one of you to go through these judgments. And when you are advising your client that, you go, okay, 50% without looking into accounts, because, whatever you say, the client may be having GST registration, the client will be having his regular books like passbook and other basic records. And if it reveals that the income is much more than 8% or 50%, as the case may be, one may have to think twice before giving this blanket advice. So 68 to 69, 69, I've just narrated it. Please go through the same. So these are the issues. And just 2 minutes I will take, Pooja, with your permission. Is it okay if I take 2 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
There are so many different limits, under section 44AB, 44AD, and 44ADA, which is made confusing. Like 44AB starts with a tax audit applicability when your gross turnover is exceeding 1 CR. Okay. So the basic limit for 44AB is a 1 CR. However, when your cash payments and cash receipts under revenue or capital nature, if it is more than 5% of total total receipts and total payments, then and if it is not more than 5% of total receipts and total payments, then the limit is extended to 10 CR. So there are two limits, 1 CR and 10 CR. In between now, there is a limit under section 44AD, the way we have discussed, that it is 2 CR for this business. And if you are having less than 5% of cash receipts, then the limit is extended to 3 CR. But if it is more than 2 CR, more than 2 CR and 3 CR, and if you are not showing 8% or 6%, is the case maybe, then you have to go for a tax audit. Similarly, under section 44 ADA, the limit is 50 lakhs rupees, which may be increased to 75 lakhs rupees when you are going for when the cash component is less than 5%. So there are so many different computation for turnover, for applicability of tax audit. one has to take care before advising the client. And thanks to the organizer and to the committee for giving me this opportunity. And thanks for the patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am. Ma'am, before we conclude,
Correct.
we have couple of questions from the
Yeah.
participants. So, if you permit, can I just
Yeah,
tell you
please.
over here? Okay.
Right.
So, there is one query from Nikita for presumptive taxation, that are provisions of Section 44 AD automatic, or they are optional for eligible assessee and eligible business who is required not to maintain under Section 44 AB.
Sorry, just come again.
Her point is, are provision of Section 44 AD automatic, or are they optional for eligible assessee and eligible business who is not required to maintain books under Section 44 AB?
See, the section is drafted very abruptly and it looks like as if it is a mandatory. But when you look into this, and especially that clause 44 AD 5, which says that once you declare your income under section 44 ADA, and in next year, if you don't go for presumptive, then 5 years you are denied. That means there is an option available to you. There is no compulsion that because you are eligible assessee and you having eligible business, you have to compulsorily opt for presumptive taxation. There is an option, but once you opt for it, and if you want to come out, then you have to go for audit and accounts.
Okay. There is another query. Assessee has a total income less than 50 lakhs and assessable under Section 44 ADA, but also has a capital gains on shares in total income. Should assessee use ITR 3 or ITR 4?
Uh, it's a proprietary concern, na?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not. Yeah.
So this is a procedural, I think, point, but maybe ITR 3 is for a proprietor. Am I right? Sorry, I will just check and get back to you. Tell her to email me the query. I'll
Okay.
reply. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello,
Okay.
Nina Ben.
Hello, Preeti. Hello, Preeti Ben.
Hi, Pooja,
Hi,
Hmm.
ma'am.
Vaishali, Bhakti. How are you all?
All
Hi,
fine.
ma'am.
Hello, all good, all good.
Yeah. Can we start the session now? It's already 4.
Yeah. Just two more queries. We'll just quickly do it. Maybe it's a very short answers. Maybe Nina ma'am would have replied for that. One is whether we can avail the benefit of old tax regime after due date, that is 31st July, and how we can avail that benefit.
I think I have extensively
Yeah,
covered this. You have to
yeah.
find
Can
the
we start
time
because I am at
before
some
due date.
place and it will be difficult for me. Hello. Can we
Okay,
start, please?
okay,
It's
okay.
already 4. Yeah, please.
Okay. So, thank you. Before we conclude the session, so it is my honor to extend a heartfelt, thanks to Nina ma'am. She has accepted our invitation
No,
on
it's
behalf of
not
the entire.
started as of now. Hello.
No,
It
for
is
Nina
started right
ma'am,
now.
no, for Nina ma'am, it's all done. The session is done.
It's session is done.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So I'll
yeah.
speak for a moment and then you can
Yes,
continue. So
yes,
hello
yes, yes.
everyone, and it's nice to be part of all of you. And I welcome all of you once again to this episode, 11th episode. It's Yashaswini, an idol, a successful women. And friends, again, I want to announce that on 6th of June, we have independent directors meet at Mumbai. And also, we are coming out with a very special program that is CA Women Leadership on 29th June. And that is at Mumbai Sahara Star. The leaders in the profession across the world will be there. We are inviting IFAC President Asma Rusmuki, who is also a women ISBA chairperson, and all the leaders in the profession. So I request all of you to please enroll as early as possible because it is filling fast, and this is our one of the initiative in 75 years of ICAI, that this global networking is happening other parts of the country. So it's an achievement for all of us. And we will be also launching the women portal for flexi and part-time work. So the women who have taken the break and want to come back, this is a networking platform for that. We'll be launching that. And other than that, a lot of other things will be provided, success stories of various women. And I request our office to please share the flyer on the screen so that everyone is aware. And simultaneously, I would also like to thank Neena Bell as well for coming over here and sharing her vast experience on the topic of income tax, old regime, new regime, and various other things. And I also thank Bhakti, who will be sharing her experience on the cyber security and data. And again, my dear moderators, Pooja, Trupti, Vaishali. So I thank each one of you very personally, and all my. I will also recognize that all my very beautiful, intelligent women participants. Always you are joining online, but this time I request all of you to please come and enroll for our CA Women's Leadership Conclave, which is first of its kind in 75 years history of ICAI. Every year we are taking new initiative, and that was last year we have started with our awards, CA Women Awards, and this year we are coming out with this leadership conclave that is first time. So this is all for you, my dear members, all my women members. Come forward and let us enjoy this festival of women, CA professional women's. With these words, I welcome all of you and give charge to Pooja. Few questions are still remaining for Neena Madam. After that, Bhakti will start the deliberation. Thank you for giving me this time as a chairperson of WMEC.
Thanks, Priti ma'am. So, ma'am, one last question, Neena ma'am. We'll just conclude after that.
Yeah.
The last question which I'm taking is that is insurance commission can be taxed under presumptive basis?
No. Commission income, agency income, brokerage is totally outside the purview of presumptive taxation.
And same with the musician, which is not involved in films.
Yeah. I think you have to see that notified profession, no? That film artist, I think musicians are not covered.
Okay.
One
Okay.
has to check.
Yeah. So I think we are short of time, and if
So
anybody
if at
has
all,
any other,
if any issues are remaining, they can always send me at my email address, which you might have circulated, or
right,
otherwise please send them and I will
right.
respond.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. So, as we conclude the session, it is my honor to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks. First and foremost, the technical session of new tax regime understanding and the presumptive taxation is required for all the professionals right now, as the due dates are approaching. So, it is always, from your side, it is always a very helpful session as it increases our horizon of understanding from your side. The list of exemptions and deductions which you have shown to us is a very handful booklet, and there are a lot of queries coming up that can we just have a PPTs or the list which you have prepared so well. The coverage of all important issues of presumptive taxation and the motivation to the new taxpayers to still promote your investments irrespective of deductions is highly appreciable from all the participants. Thanks, Neena ma'am, for all time support to the CA fraternity and the special event which is organized by Yashasvi this time. So, on behalf of managing committee, moderators, and all the participants, I'm extending my heartfelt thanks to you, ma'am, to accept this invitation. We are looking forward to see you more on this portal. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks for giving the opportunity.
Yeah. So, what are you coordinators for the next prospective session?
Yeah, now we have to. Good evening, everyone. Now we are in the second session of the webinar, that is cyber security and data protection. Today we have a eminent speaker, CA Bhakti Dalbide. Let me introduce to all of you regarding her career path and her profile. She is a chartered accountant. She is a DISA CISA certified. She is having 22 years of experience in risk, governance, and information security
She is a certified lead auditor of ISO 27001 and ITIL Foundation. She is a data privacy lead assessor from Data Security Council of India. CA Bhakti has contributed to Audit and Accounting Standard Board for guidance note of bank audits. She has a written article in Indian Express Marathi paper Lok Satta on capability building in cyber security and digital security challenges in election period. She has a past experience in and hold senior position in the BFSI domain like ICICI Bank, SBI Life Insurance, Tata Motor Finance Limited. C. Bhakti was Chief Information Security Officer of Universal Sampo General Insurance. Presently, she is an associated partner in Kirtane Pandit firm and heading cyber security division. We all welcome you, madam, and looking forward for enlightening us. And the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for wonderful introduction. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present this relevant subject on this forum. So I'll just share my screen over here. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, it is visible.
Just hold on. Is it visible to other content also, or not able to? Is it that screen is only visible, no? No other content is visible, right? So other windows are not.
No other window, only the screen, data privacy, and your name.
Okay. So thanks a lot for this giving me this opportunity. So today I will speak on data privacy. The government of India has recently passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and I will talk about that act, not in very detailed one, but I will speak more on the what is data, what is personal data, what is privacy, and then what is data privacy, and basic concepts of the privacy, which is basically the edifice of entire data privacy frameworks, or entire data privacy regulations, or the rules which are actually came into existence across the world. So our Indian digital personal data protection bill is also based on that certain principles. So I will talk more on that principle rather than the actual clauses and actual definitions, or actual the rules requirement of that act. So agenda of my entire session is like that. First, I will explain the various personal data breaches happened in India. Then introduction of data privacy. Then digital personal data protection bill, some of the clauses in that bill, and then the of the act, and then the key takeaways of entire session. So you have come across recent attacks like last year in India, AIMS attacks happened, like uh, All India medical science has faced the cyber attacks. And All India Institutes of Medical Science is basically the premier medical institutes in India, and very important persons of the or the political persons normally admitted to AIMS, and their health records are normally available over there. And it's a very premium medical institutes and has a lot of personal data and medical history of various patients over there. And that hospital has faced the cyber attack, and almost 6 days the entire operations were standstill. And it was reported that the hackers were demanding the 200 crore crypto ransom to loosen their grips. Similar way in 2020-21, Air India also reported a massive cyber attack, and millions of customers' data were breached. And that personal data is basically the name, contact information, date of birth, ticket information, frequent flyer data, passport information, and credit card details. So I'm just pausing over here, and I'm just asking questions, or I'm just thinking over, like, whether have you, whenever you have come across such kind of instances or news in the papers or any channels, do you feel very scary about that, ki, what that data, and then whether my I have also traveled through from the Air India, and my data might have accessed by hackers, and they might have used my data for their purposes or for their benefit purpose. So have you come across such kind of a fear in your mind whenever you read this information? So normally how it happens, like whenever cyber fraud or the cyber attacks happen, the two types of things happen, like money is normally siphoned off, or maybe a data is breach and hackers demands a ransom. So in that case, in first case, our money is lost. So that times we feel very bad about it as our money is lost. But whenever our personal data is a breach, that time we feel equally sad. Whether, or do you feel this really dangerous thing that someone is stealing our data? So the normally whenever I speak such kind of a things to anyone, so that fear of that fear was not there, or the whenever or that it happened, we can't do anything, that kind of a sentence or the comments we I receive from people. And sometimes I feel, sometimes they say that I'm not that important, I don't have such kind of a data which someone can use for their benefit purpose. So such kind of comments I receive, and that time I feel that this persons or the we are not actually aware about the protection of our data. We are not thinking that I'm important and my data is not to be disclosed or not to be shared with anyone for their benefit purpose. So this kind of a this kind of cultural mindset needs to be changed. That is what I feel. And it's normal tendency that we can't do much, or it's whatever controls we will put, but the attack will happen and we can't do, and that is why we just read that news and then we will forget about it. That is the tendency normally we follow. So but we have to be very sensitized, and we have to be take necessary actions whenever such kind of a data breaches happens. We have to inquire whether my data is a breach or not, what kind of a precautions the organization is going to take. So such things we don't do, or we are not aware that such kind of a things are happening, are necessary for us to take the action. So I am talking about that. So whenever I ask the question, what is the data or what is personal data? So when I asked this question, so I got the answer that data, my personal data is a Aadhaar. My personal data is basically the Aadhaar card and the PAN, or maybe my address. Such kind of things they normally talk, but they don't talk about, like, my social behavior or my likes and dislikes are also my personal data. So like a 30 years ago, understanding of personal data was a relatively a straightforward thing, because it was typically stored in a physical media that could not be that could be touched or locked away, or if needed it is visibly destroyed also. So there were no smartphones which captures and emits a lot of data. And and that is why actually it's very difficult for us also to understand what is my personal data. That time actually cameras were also not there in the laptops as well as in our cell phone, our phones also. So at the same time, car also did not have the GPS systems to track our journey by default. So these were the things were not there, and that is why some it is difficult for understand difficult for us also to understand what is my personal data. So no one understand that by clicking certain link or browsing various websites, you are generating your personal data, and that data is without noise or invisibly is transferred or shared with hundreds of other sites. And the number of sites or instances you browse, that times number of data is generated, and that data is stitched together in a remote location, and it creates your profile. So smartphone, after the invention or after the use of smartphone, that data things becomes a more and more relevant and more becomes a cause of concern, because smartphone generates a lot of data, and it helps to create your profile also, that Bhakti is this kind of a person, Bhakti likes this, Bhakti some things doesn't, she doesn't like this. So such kind of a profiling is a possible because of my social media presence, because of my social media expressions. And that helps the perpetrators, or that helps the platform to understand me better rather than understanding through the PAN card and through the Aadhaar card. And which basically create a correct posture about, or create a accurate picture about myself, and which helps them to manipulate my decisions or influence my decision. That is the basically the disadvantage of entire thing. So here I will speak like what is personal data. So if you see like how many apps you have downloaded on your cell phones, or how many times you share your data on various websites, or to become a member of various groups, and whenever you are purchasing any gadgets, do you consider whether that gadget is a privacy compliant settings or not? So that kind of things we need to start thinking over. And these whatever the data generated out of these fit bands or the geolocations or the likes, dislikes, tweets, or this, these are basically our personal data. And not only the Aadhaar and PAN card is our personal data. So I'll just give you a homework. Like, you just create a list of personal data you generate since morning, like how many times you share, or how many times, or which sides you express your opinion or express your likes and dislikes. That times actually it creates data. So if you make a list of that since morning, it's very scary at the end of the day that you have done a lot of activities over the social media or the internet, and it's basically gives a lot more information about you. So just do that exercise for your benefit purpose. So next question is, what is privacy? So it's, you understand the data, then you understand the personal data. What is personal data? And this topic is about the data privacy. So we will go for the privacy purpose, or the what is the privacy. So privacy is basically many times privacy is I don't want someone to influence my decision. I don't want that want that someone knows more about me which I don't want to share with that person for their benefit purpose. Like normally you watch that Big Boss show, where that Big Boss is always watching all the members, and if member doesn't act as per their rules, then he intervenes. So similarly, that big tech, basically the Google, Netflix, or Facebook, are monitoring, and the various other tech platforms are monitoring us, and they are generating a lot of data. And then they, by creating an accurate profile, they influence our decision. They convert our likes into dislikes and dislikes into likes. And many times it happened that they also influence our religious belief, social belief. and which is more dangerous, which I feel, rather than a mere some loss of money out of the cyber fraud or the cyber attacks. So someone manipulate me is a really dangerous thing, and it's because it is an intrusion in my private space. And there I feel that someone should not I will not allow someone to enter into my private space unnecessarily. So that is the thing, is basically the privacy is. So many scholars actually argued that the privacy is non-existent in India because culturally and socially we like to talk to people, we like to share our personal things also with our fellow passengers also while we are traveling. And so it's difficult to imbibe that culture of privacy, and then I need some space for myself. So that culture is not there, or it's maybe slowly it is developing, but it's not in our roots. So that is why the data privacy, and that some I should not share my data with someone, that concept will take some time to understand, or to imbibe among the citizens. That is what the thought process is. Some scholars have actually accepted. I disagree with this thought, because we share our data with neighbors, or the very maybe a strangers or our fellow passengers, only because we know that they will not influence my decision by using that data for their benefit purpose. Once I know that they are doing this, I'll stop. I or anyone will stop sharing our personal data or personal matters, or the our life experiences with them, when they are using that for their some marketing purposes or for their benefit purposes. So I will not share. So we are sharing because we have a trust, but when that trust loses, we don't share our information with them. The same happened with the social platforms also, because we are sharing our data, but if that data is not used properly, or if data is not used with a trust, then we will stop using that. We will stop using, or we will stop sharing our personal data on the platforms. So it is not that we don't understand the privacy, we understand the privacy. And that is why I'll say that um, privacy is basically, as per the definition, privacy is basically someone's right to keep their personal matters or relationship secret, or a state in which no one is not observed or disturbed by another. There is no cause of basically intrusion or the interference from the others. So that privacy, the best example or the best definition which I like, it's privacy is the right to be let alone. Give me a space, I want to live alone, don't interfere in my life, don't influence my decision, don't influence my likes and dislikes. That is basically the data privacy is. Okay. Yes, so whatever I explain over here is that only. And in that case, I will feel that I want to keep my choices or daily routine or my religious belief private and secret. So how do I achieve this? That is also the question. So this food for thought. Then analyze your lifestyle 10 years before and now, and your beliefs, whether the same belief, same religious belief, same social beliefs were there 10 years back, and now how you are thinking. Is there anyone, or is there a social force which changes your belief, or is there social force which changes your likes, dislikes? So just evaluate from that perspective for yourself, just introspect, and then you will come to know that what is happening with us. And that is why that data privacy is very important for our as an individual level also. So what is the solution for that? Can we stop using this WhatsApp? Can you stop using the social media or smartphone? Is it possible that we have come that industrial revolution 3 4 and we have reached at a certain level? Can we go back to stone age, or can we go back to that, still our whatever records we will keep in a physical form? We can't move back, or we can't go back. So what is the choice we have in this case? The choice is only that we need we need to be very aware about whatever we are sharing the data, whatever how the things are happening over the net, and how they're trying to manipulate us. And we should not be get influenced by the views of others, or we should not get influenced by that algorithm which runs for us. So we have to be very careful about that. At the same time, as a corporate also, they have to implement some privacy compliant procedures and privacy compliant applications, like a iPhone has a privacy setting. So similar settings, similar configuration will come for Androids or for other applications also. So that kind of privacy compliant processes, privacy compliant security settings is the solution for this age. And it's not that we will stop using the WhatsApp and stop using the social media. So why these things have started, or why this act have started, so that I also so this particular slide I have kept because while doing my practice, I have come across so many queries. Or recently, as yesterday only, I was discussing with my client who is a CRO of one of the big insurance companies, and he was asking me the question that about the CISO is doing everything for securing the data, and why the privacy officer is necessary, and what is the difference between the, if I am complying with all the cybersecurity requirement, then there is any additional requirement for the data privacy which I need to follow. So the answer is yes, because data, there is a slight difference between the data privacy or data security, or you can call it as a data protection. So what that difference or what that thin line is, that the whatever data collected by the organization. So cyber security or the data security part is basically they are protecting the data, or they are implementing the security controls or the IT controls to protect that data. But they will not talk about what data is the organizations are supposed to collect, or how you are whether you are using this for a particular purpose, whether we are supposed to use this for that particular purpose or not. The security does not talks about that, but the privacy will talk about that. Privacy will say that this data is not necessary to discharge your responsibilities to the client, so you should not supposed to collect that data, you should not store that data for longer period of time, and you should not use that data for the purpose for which you are not collecting it. So these are the principles, or these are the main crux of the data privacy. And that is why the data privacy and the data security has some difference. So you cannot have a privacy without security, but you can have security without a privacy. So there is a thin line. So whenever you visit any client and the client is saying we have all the controls and our CISO team is actively working and infosec team is working fantastically, so then, and that is why we don't require the privacy, we have fulfilled all the data privacy requirement, we have fulfilled all the DPDP requirements. So in that case, there you have to say that there is a much more thing is untouched or unaddressed, which are the main crux of the data privacy or the DPDP Act. So I'll just run past through the entire journey of the DPDP Act. So what has happened? Like the Aadhaar was introduced, and then the Aadhaar used to use for basically the representing the identity. It's basically the identity of an individual or identity of a citizens, and it captures personal data like a biometric, iris, face recognition, then our other details, and that Aadhaar data is used to basically access by the banks and insurance companies for their purposes, and without informing to owner of that data. And there actually that the moment or that discussion has started, that how someone can use Aadhaar data for their business purposes or for their business growth purposes, so cannot use that data. And then that case was basically the put up, it's a famous case, it's Aadhaar case, or it's a landmark judgment given by the Supreme Court. So it's basically the Justice case Puttaswamy, retired judge, and he's filed a case against the Union of India. And in 2017, that case was filed, and then it filed, and its Supreme Court has given a judgment about that the right to privacy is a fundamental right under the constitutions, and no one can use the Aadhaar data, or no one can use the personal data recklessly for their business purpose or for their marketing purposes. That was a judgment passed by Supreme Court, and it gives a right. It's basically the fundamental rights to every citizens of the right to privacy. And after that decision, how we will implement that decision? So there should be some legal framework, or there should be some mechanism through which which the country should protect the citizens' data. And then 2018, that process has started. Then committees were formed. So there were a lot of uh, committees formed, public consultations were made. So I will not go into detail, but in the last year, in the month of August, this Digital Personal Data Protection Act has came into the place. This act, even though has came into the place, but it's not notified, so it's not actually started. It's not basically effective. The after the Lok Sabha election, this rules will be issued, and once that rules will be issued, that all the clauses and all the provisions becomes applicable, and then the date of effectiveness will be issued as per the rules, and it will be issued. Then it will start actually rolling out, or it will start implementing that act. So as of the act is there, but it's not notified. So I will just explain the basic concepts of Digital Personal Data Protection Act over here. So personal data, as I explained earlier, so you now you must be aware, or you understood that properly. That data is basically it's not a Aadhaar and PAN card. It's about your whatever data which is easily identifiable. That yes, this data is there. So this is data of a Bhakti Dalbide. So can be easily identifiable data. So that is considered as a personal data. Then this act is not applicable to the physical form of data, like you are collecting your PAN or Aadhaar in a physical form from your client, then this act will not be applicable. Or maybe you are collecting some information like Aadhaar card details from your maid servants. Then in that case, you are using for your personal purpose. It's not using for your official purpose. So again, in that case also it is not applicable. And the information which is made available on a public domain, like I posted my contact number, I posted my information on the Facebook or something, so I am making it public. So I can't go back and say that this is my information, personal information. How can you use my because I only made that is I only made it public. So in that case, that DPDP Act will not be applicable. So personal data, and then the non-applicability of data. And the third point is that the personal data breaches. How will you consider that data when something happened to that data? How will you consider that this data is a breach, or that data is lost or something like that? So in that case, they have given a definition of like an unauthorized processing of personal data. Or it's maybe in intentional or unintentional, or maybe accidental disclosure of data, or acquisition or sharing of data, or use, alteration, destruction, loss of access to personal data. So, and which also compromises the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of a personal data is considered as a personal data breach as per the Act. So this definition is given by the Act. And if there are any non-compliances, then the company, basically the data fiduciary who collects data and through which that data is a compromise, has to pay the penalty, and that penalty is up to the 250 crore. So there is a lot of debate happens, or there is a lot of criticisms from the scholars, like 250 is too high amount, and sometimes the company may go bankrupt because after paying this 250 crore penalties. But the objective of putting that 250 crore is that to show that seriousness to the organization who are actually collecting the data, and that penalty is so high. So instead of that, there is a normal mindset that we will, if something happens, or if there is a non, we will make the payment of penalty, but we will not implement the control. So that is the normally mindset of the organization. So to basically to prevent, or to put the break of such kind of a mindset, that penalty, penalty amount is high. Yeah. So there are three roles are defined, or the three individuals, like a data principal. So data principal is the person whose data is collected and used, like individuals like ourselves, like or citizens of India whose data is collected, is a data principal. And data fiduciary is the one who actually decides, or the who decides the purpose and means of processing of data. So it's like insurance companies or the bank or mutual funds or maybe any company, travel agencies or maybe Air India or the hospitals or hotels who are collecting a data. These are the data fiduciary, and there are certain responsibilities are assigned or entrusted to the data fiduciary. And data processor is basically who process the data on behalf of the data fiduciary, because you have experience like an insurance or the banking insurance, most of the work are outsourced to some third parties, and then third parties are actually doing that work. So these all third parties are the data processor who have no contact or connection with the data principal. They don't have any responsibility towards the data principal. They have a responsibilities or the roles towards the data fiduciary, and they work on behalf of data fiduciary. They will not have any such thing for the data principal per se. So data, there is always a uh, whenever any request or anything is raised, so data principal has to raise any request to the data fiduciary only, and not the data processor. So what the data processors obligations? So some of the obligations, or I'll say that there are certain principles of privacy, which are which same across all the regulations or all the acts across the globe. So there are like a purpose limitation or the use limitation, or maybe a notice to the client, or it's a storage limitation. So all these limitations or all these principles are explained over here, or are actually introduced through the various clauses in that act. So one first act is that, or first requirement is that whenever anyone is collecting data for discharging duty or for delivering goods and services, that time that person has to give, or that corporate has to give a precise notice, or he has to obtain the consent of the data principal, that I'm collecting your data and I'm using this data for these 1 2 3 reasons, or 1 2 3 purposes. And that notice, or that you can call it as a consent, it should be very clear, concise and comprehensible. So that then only that the person who is sharing the data, his data, can make a decision, or he can take a informed decisions. And the important aspect is that the free consent. So like in Indian Contract Act, we learn that whenever any contract is executed, that consent should be free. So similar intention is also over here. Like whenever someone is giving the consent, that consent should be free. It should not be like a coercive, or it should not be like a forceful consent, or it should not be like a bundle consent. So like, say for example, I'll take some more time on this, because this is very important concept of this entire DPDP Act. Because say for example, the insurance company is collecting information, or they're collecting data. So that data is used for providing services, or providing their renewal, or any policy servicing related matters. That is the first objective. So he will write that I'm collecting this data for this particular. Second is that, first is that the issuance of policy, second is for the servicing of the policy. Third point is that I will use your data for cross sell purpose, cross sell of my product only. I will use your data to share my parent companies, or to share my group companies, to uh, to market their product, like an insurance company sharing his client data to the banks for loan purposes, or for mutual fund companies for their marketing their product. So that company has to list down all these 1 2 3 4 line items, and the person who are sharing the data, or who are giving a consent, he should have a right, like he can click 1 2 3, and if he doesn't want to share the data for the marketing purposes, or he doesn't want to share the data for cross sell purposes, then he should have that mechanism should be available to the person, that he can click only the two items and he can reject the rest two items. So that kind of a detailing or that kind of a thing should be there in the notice, and that is why that I'm telling you that it should be like a bundle. I'm using your data for something, or I'm using your data. It's only either you can give a consent or you can't give a consent. If you don't give a consent, I will not give my services to you. So it is not like that yes and no kind of a thing. It should not be yes and no kind of a thing. It's like a WhatsApp. Few years back, like a WhatsApp says, if you are not sharing a data, or if you are not giving this data, giving a permission to us, then we will not provide you, we will not provide our services to you. So we basically forcefully accept that, and then we give a consent that okay, we will give you can use my data for your purposes. So it should not be like that. It should not be a bundle consent. It should not be a it should be a free consent, and it should be the individual should able to make an informed decision about. He should be aware that where my data that company is going to use. So he should be very clear about that. And if something is happening, like uh, if customer shares or gives a consent, and later on he feels that no, after 2 years I don't want to share, or I don't want to give approval to the consent of last two items, and I want to give only for first two, then he should have a right to withdraw that consent for that particular purposes. So that the customer or the client has to, or the company has to implement the controls at that level. So this is very exhaustive, and it requires a lot of technical changes, lot of process changes needs to be made in the internal organizations. So that is basically the consent part or the notice part. So he has to give the purposes also, and he has to give the how he will use that. And if he's sharing the data with third parties, that also the person, the company has to, that data fiduciary has to explain that I'm sharing this data for to the call center for giving you calls for the renewal of your policies. So that also he has to clearly give in that notice. So it requires a lot of deliberation for the implementation purpose also. Another part is, second part is that whenever we are as a data principal, so whenever we are sharing that data, we should ensure that data is accurate, complete, and as consistent. And at the same time, when data fiduciary collect the data, he should also ensure that data is complete, consistent, and accurate. The third is that the whenever he has to use that data, like he has to use this data only for the purpose for which we have given a consent, and he should not use that data for the purpose for which we have not given a consent. After that, whenever any data breaches happen, so he should report to all the data principals that data breaches have happened at my end and we are taking actions or something like that. He has to inform to data principal as well as data protection board, that which will be formed in a due course. Then this another one is that he has to erase the personal data unless retention of the same is necessary. So he has to company has to erase the data once that purpose for which he has collected the data. Say for example, I share data with some real estate agent or the, and then after I bought a home, and then after 2 years also I'm getting the call. So but then that my purpose is actually achieved, and now I want to remove my consent for consent because I have achieved already that purpose. So immediately that real estate agent should also remove that data from his record, because that purpose is already achieved, and the same is applicable to corporate also. So maybe for example, the Swiggy or Zomato, we are actually ordering. So that time they collects the geolocations. And once that food is served at your location, that the geolocation data should be removed from their system, because that the purpose for which they collected that our geolocation is achieved. And that is why it should be immediately removed from their database or from their system. So that kind of a retention of retention of data requirement is necessary, and technically it's bit difficult, but the companies has to evaluate various products, and then they have to implement properly. And at the last and the least, there's normal cybersecurity controls, because if the data breach happens, then the first question is that have you protected the data properly, whether that cybersecurity controls were implemented properly or not. So the organization has to implement technical and organizational measures to ensure that the data, whenever the data is lying in their organization, it should be properly protected from the unauthorized access or from the cyber attacks. So that is the obligation of a data fiduciary, which basically captures the essence of all the principles of data privacy first. This is the obligation of data fiduciary, sorry. Then rights of data principles. So like are the rights, so right to access the information about personal information, a right to correction and erasure of personal data, or right of grievance redressal, and right to nominate. So this right to nominate is the new requirement, which basically will you will not find in other data privacy acts or in on the across the world. This is the typical Indian requirement. Uh, right to grievance also, it's like you have to make a complaint, and there should be a complaint mechanism should be established at the data fiduciary level. And uh, right to correction is also, if there are changes has to be made, then we should have a right to make a changes in that system. So that is the rights of data principle. It's basically the citizens right. This is basically the summary or the brief about the DPDP Act. So you will ask what is my role, or how will I actually apply at my individual? What is the takeaway of this entire session, or what is the takeaway of the DPDP Act? So the takeaway is basically at an individual level and at the data fiduciary level. First is that whenever at an individual level, whenever you are sharing data, so you should be very responsible. Be responsible whenever you are sharing data. Don't share the data which is not asked for. Sometimes we give all the information, like whenever we are visit any restaurant, and they normally ask your marriage dates, marriage anniversary date, or your birthday. If we decided to share the date, it's not required, but if still you want to take some discount during those period, then and you share that date, so you can simply give the date and the month. It's not required to give the year of your birth. It's not asked for. So because it gives the additional information about your age. So don't give information which is, or the data which is not asked for, and just think of whether are you really going to that restaurant again for that, for availing that particular benefit. If it is not, then don't share that data. So whenever, just sensitize yourself also whenever you're sharing or someone is asking, just ask that question, that why do you need that data, how it is helpful to serve the current need. And then only you basically decide, take your own decision. So that is the thing. So be responsible, share the data which is really necessary for delivering goods and services. Then whenever you are downloading any application or something, there are a lot of things are there, basically accessing our cameras, and then accessing our phone books and contact list, and then the photos. So just think over it. Just take a moment and just think whether these are the things are really necessary, uh, uh, necessary for the purpose for which that application is built, or that application is really needed, application is required to run properly, whether that information is really necessary or not. So just think over and then provide a consent. And if you don't want to give a consent, if it is not relevant, then the report that this is basically it's the data is not required, still you are asking, so don't provide that data. Don't provide a consent to the client, and if they to the customer, to company, sorry. Then file a complaints with appropriate authorities in case of personal data breach. So there should be some mechanism to be set up by the companies to file a complaints, and there then they actually find out anything is there, and then file a complaint if you face such kind of uh, personal data breach or unnecessary information is asked for from you, then in that case you can file a complaints to that organizations. Then okay, data responsibilities at a data fiduciary level. So I explained the data fiduciary level. So as a CA, we are as a practicing CA, we are collecting a lot of personal data, and clients are like our personal family members kind of a thing over the period of time, and we share a lot of data with they share a lot of data with us. And like a Aadhaar card, PAN, we normally collect. Sometimes all the times the digital signature is also with us, and we are using their signature then without their knowledge. At the same time, we use our personal number for their GST registration or for their legal formality purpose. So this is a normal practice we follow, but just think over it whether it is correct practice, or take some extra efforts to give their number only, to convince that give me some time, and don't share your personal data or connect your personal data with someone else, because it has some identity. So whenever you are collecting also data, you just see whether that data is really necessary for discharging your professional duties or not, or once that objective is achieved, you just remove the data, you just return. If it is in physical form, it is not applicable, but still you can return that data, or you just remove the data or delete data from your system, or your if it is a, nowadays we share all this data on WhatsApp, so just remove the data from WhatsApp or your from mobile phone also. So because as a you are collecting data, and the act does not discriminate that the this company it's applicable to only a government, or it's applicable to only big corporates. They are selling it is applicable to firms, association of persons, or HUA for companies or trust also. So just think of, and don't create a don't follow the practice which you have been doing, and create a problem which may create a problem for you if something is um unavoidable circumstance, or some any cyber attack or the ransomware attack happen in your system, then your client's data will be breached, and unnecessarily you will face a penalty of such things, and then the it's basically the loss of trust also. And so that is why you also implement a proper cyber security measures to avoid such kind of attacks in your environment. So this is basically as a data fiduciary pose your responsibility. These are the basic hygienes or the practices you follow as a profession, as a professional person, or as a CA, for your organization purpose. And for the client, you also educate client, because it's recently I've come across, and then suddenly that requirement started coming from the various my existing client only, that "Arey, what is that DPDP, and are you doing, or are you giving any services in that?" So I said, yes, we are giving, but what happened suddenly, and you started giving me a call then. So no, the top management was asking. So even the very big companies or the listed companies, senior management is not aware about this act, and then that when act is that rules will come, will be roll out, then in that case, it is applicable to everyone. And so just educate the your existing client. It is applicable to hospitals, it's applicable to hotel industry, or maybe manufacturing also. It's like BFSI sector, it's more relevant to the BFSI sector, as well as travel industry. So whenever your clients are in this industry, just educate them that this act has issued, and then it may applicable to you, or have you done any assessment of that, or start educating that, because that implementation, it's a mammoth work, and it will not happen within one or two. It takes some time to implement properly, implementation of the DPDP Act across the country. So we have to start somewhere. So we have to start educating our existing client that whether are you aware of it, because many clients are not aware, big clients are not aware of about this requirement. And this is also very good practice area. I will say that if you read that bill is very act is very simple act, and it's only 30-40 pages act, and uh, it does not have basically the technical thing or the technical words uh, which actually CA can't do. So by reading, we have a habit of reading the laws and the act, and we are interpretation of the act is our also capability. So we can help client also. It's more of a processor related thing. So we can help our client in implementation of DPDP Act, and that is also one of the practice area for you. That is basically as an individual, or as per the as a professional CA as a profession, your responsibility towards the DPDP Act, which I feel. And I'm just concluding my session here. Okay, so be aware and be secure. And thank you very much. If you have any queries or if any questions, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Bhakti madam. That was a wonderful session. And yes, we have two questions. So someone is asking three questions. Okay. How do we know personal data from our phone has been compromised?
Personal data has been
From our
compromised.
phone has been compromised. Yes.
So
Means
you
someone has detected the information from our phone. How we will come to know?
see, you will. There are unusual, basically the behaviors of your phone, or
Hmm.
some software is normally, say for example, virus is on your phone, and it's collecting the data and it's transferring the data.
Correct.
So it's some unusual behavior you will observe in your phone, like it's getting slow, or some functions are not working properly, or it consumes your space also. So that gives you idea that something is wrong in your phone, or it's a virus. But apart from that also, you just go and check whatever applications you have downloaded. You just check the permission of that application. You will come to know that that installed applications are using your lot of data.
Correct. Correct. Madam,
So
sometimes
that
it
permission
happens.
setting you have to basically check.
Right. Sometimes it happens that I've come across from one of my known that he gave his phone for repairing to a mobile repairer, and when he collected the phone, he started his phone, and some unusual activity matlab, saw some unusual activities. So he came to know from some cyber security person only that a spy app has been downloaded in his mobile,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
app is not appearing, but like it's not visible
Not
in the,
visible. So you will not
so
come to know only. So in that case,
so
if
what
that is what it will not give you immediately. So you have to actually through the unusual activities only, like some suspicious activity or some unusual or activities.
is
Then
it
only
there?
you will come
So
to know that there. Then you will not
okay,
able to find out. You have to go somewhere else and to ask someone to take that
actually,
report,
yeah.
take that your phone. Then only you will come to know. Otherwise you have to search how to actually identify. There are some softwares which are basically not active, and it becomes active at a certain
Yeah, it
moment,
was completely
right?
invisible.
Yeah, so that happens. So we have to be very careful while downloading any applications, or whenever we are sharing any data, or we have to see that whatever applications have downloaded, you have to make a check every time, because
Hmm.
sometimes it so happen that you are downloading the application A, and along with that you also
Simultaneously,
download that
yes,
simultaneously another
correct,
application
correct.
is downloaded, so you'll not come to know that. So we have
Right.
to keep like a housekeeping kind of a thing. We have to do it for our phone also.
Yes, correct. The second question is, so the data collected from directories won't come under this preview.
Directories means
Directories who I think this question is from France. So directories would be like a kind of telephone directories wherein phone numbers and the name of a person is mentioned.
see here, the act has not applicable to the physical form of data.
Hmm. Correct.
So if that directory has a data, but it is in a physical form, and that is why it is not. But when you are digitizing that physical form of data into a digital form, that time that act is applicable.
Correct.
So we have to actually say whenever it is converting from physical to the digital,
Yes.
then all the rules and all the basically provisions will be applicable to the digital form and not for the
Physical
physical
form.
form, right?
Okay. And one last question is, in many cases, clients expect us to hold their data as a threat of cyber attack on their server. How to handle that? Can we accept that situation?
Or can you explain again?
In many cases, clients expect us to hold their data as a threat of cyber attack on their server. There might be some cyber attack on their server, so client, matlab,
Backup
as far
copy,
as I could
we want
understand
to
that.
keep a backup copy at your.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, okay. So backup, so you don't accept such a request because
Actually, we
unnecessary
should
you are
not.
taking data, it's none of your business, and if something goes wrong, then you will be held responsible for that. So don't
Correct.
accept such kind of a. And there are cloud services are available. Then ask the client to save it on a cloud or to save the particular data to your branch A or maybe some other branch or to some other office
Yes,
or
yes, yes.
that is available, no? That option is available. So don't take that risk that only because the
Correct.
client is requesting.
And
Unnecessary,
yes.
you are actually attracting the all the provisions of the act.
Correct. And the one last question, a great question, the scope of CAs in this act.
That is what I told or I mentioned that this act, if you read, it's only 40-page documents, and if you read properly, there is no basically technical jargons or the technical requirement which we need to understand. It's a pure process
Yes.
related entire clauses and the entire. So which we can also as a part of internal audit, we understand the business process and we guide people. So same way, this is a process related requirement only. And whenever it is required some technical understanding or the implementation of a technical controls, you can take the help of technical people for
Correct.
implementation. But in industry, there is a lot of debate is happening because that it's an act, and that is why they are saying it is a responsibility of a legal department,
Legal department.
and
Correct.
legal department is not aware of, and legal department says I can't understand the technologies, how can I ensure the compliance of that act, and that is why it should be a
Correct.
responsibility of a CISO or it should be a responsibility of a IT head. So there is a tussle or there is a discussion is going on among
Yes.
the industry. But we can take a lead and we can actually, there are very few people in the industry who are actually knows this act and basically ready to implement that act. So there is a lot of scope for implementation assignment or the
Fine.
consulting assignments.
Fine. Okay. Fine. So now we are done with the questions.
Hmm.
And it was wonderful experience, beta. एक minute, आपको. Sorry, ma'am. My daughter, my small daughter is too
It's
small.
okay.
So it was wonderful session. So on behalf of WMEC, I would like to convey all my gratitude to Preeti madam and Kemisha madam for amazing this amazing initiative, Yashaswini. It's really great. I attend many times.
Okay.
And taking today's sessions, both the topics are really most demanding for CA fraternity. Today's topics were most demanding. And once again, thank you, Bhakti madam, to you. You are a wonderful speaker. Your thanks for apprising us with all kinds of cybersecurity and data protection. And also my all-time gratitude to one and all for taking up time to join the session and making it successful. Thank you, Bhakti Madam, once again.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.